Thousands of years ago, when the world was a mystery, our ancestors lived by the tales they were told. Creation was by the gods, and we lived in a supernatural world. In the Philippines, there was more reason to fear than most. Terror lurked under the shadows of the forests, and the nights were never safe. But how did the supernatural creatures of the Philippines come to be, and do people today still believe in them? Find out as we explore the origins of the Tikbalang, the Kapre, and the Manananggal.
My husband, Ian, he told me about a story from their family's experience that apparently my father-in-law had this really bad sickness that no doctor cannot cure, and I can't remember what he was feeling or what his sickness was. But eventually, they went to a faith healer in our hometown, and then that faith healer said that apparently there's like a supernatural creature that is in love with my father-in-law, that they have to throw a party for this creature or something, and that everything has to be like no salt. All the food has to have no salt. And that's what they did. That's exactly what they did. And then eventually my father-in-law got better. So I don't know if that was a coincidence or a really supernatural occurrence, but that's what my husband told me.
Ghosts, probably, if you can call it supernatural. I could count two experiences. One was when I was really young in Batangas. You were sleeping already, but then all of a sudden I woke up. When I opened my eyes, there was a steam or that looked like a face. Looking at me. And then after a second, it was gone. That was when I was really young. But it stuck to my mind. Until now, I remember that. It was in Batangas, the house of my aunt.
Supernatural occurrences is nothing new to the Philippines. Even today, there are stories of terrible creatures who stalk the night, preying on the fears of anything in its path. We will focus our attention on three of the most popular ones.
Tikbalang, it's a human with the head of a horse.
This creature would be like raping women or something, eventually would give birth to more tikbalangs. That's what I heard.
The Tikbalang is a creature that is said to frighten travelers and lead them astray, playing tricks on them so that they repeatedly travel the same path they took, no matter how far they've gone and no matter how many times they've turned. It haunts the forests and mountains of the Philippines. Countermeasures to this is wearing your shirt inside out, asking aloud for permission to pass by, or being as silent as possible when in the woods in order to not disturb it. There are also recorded tales of how to tame one or become its master. One way is to pluck its 3 golden hairs before it eats you. The tikbalang will then serve the one who holds its strands until death. The tikbalang's origins can be traced back to the ancient people of the Philippines. They believed in animism, or that all things, trees, animals, stones, rivers, the sun, had spiritual qualities and were animate and living. The spirits could be good or evil and control some aspects of life. The tikbalang is one of these spirits. As for how it got its appearance, there is strong evidence that it is due to the influence of Hinduism. By 200 BCE, Hinduism had reached to Southeast Asia, with solidifying oceanic trade routes contributing to its spread. The Hindu god of knowledge and wisdom, Hayagriva, an avatar of Vishnu, is often depicted with a horse's head. And that's not all. Later on, Buddhism overtook Asia, and Hayagriva evolved into a much more wrathful and aggressive version of himself. Thus is the history of this feared half-horse, half-man nature spirit.
Capre is a tall guy. He smokes tobacco.
He's the one that would just like stay by the trees or something and then just smoke.
These are three giants. They live in the trees. The same thing with Tikbala. They keep on frightening people.
The Kapre is a giant that sits underneath large trees, wearing an indigenous loincloth and sometimes wearing a belt that could render the creature invisible. This tree giant is nocturnal and is not considered evil. However, it could turn vengeful if its tree is cut down. If it makes contact with someone, it's because of the desire for friendship or a romantic relationship. It will then follow the human throughout its life. They are known to play pranks on people by disorienting travelers and making them lose their way in the forest or mountains. They could also cause a person in their own home to forget where they are. The origins of the Kapre is rooted on the ancient animism folk beliefs of the Philippines. Various regions and tribes have accounts of dark, giant spirits that lived among the trees. In Spanish literature, during the colonization of the Philippines, the word Kapre was used to mean uncouth or uncivilized behavior, and it became the general term for these tree giants. Filipinos pronounced it as Kapre. As for the smoking, it is actually a recent development that came about after the abolishment of the tobacco monopoly in the Philippines in 1882. The families of the Ilocos regions would share foot-long cigars, and their version of the tree giant spirit, the Bugot, was eventually identified as the only version who smoked. The Spanish then united all forms of the tree spirit under one general term, the Kapre. Thus is the history of this watchful, smoking tree spirit.
Manananggal is this witch kind of that would at night her body would separate, like half of her body would separate, and that she would have wings and that she would be like up flying all around terrorizing people.
They said it's a woman who is so beautiful, but when the night or the dawn, at night or at dawn, they become this manananggal. They fly half-bodied and prey on people who stays outside.
And so there would be somewhere where if she left her body, it would be just there, half of her body, and half of her body would be traveling and terrorizing people. And I remember they say you put salt on the half of her body, that way she won't be able to come back to it, and she died because she has to be back to her to the second half of her body before the sun would rise.
The manananggal is a fearsome creature, usually female, that preys on sleeping pregnant women, using an elongated tongue to suck the organs of the fetus, though it can do the same to grown adults. It is usually killed by covering the lower half of its body with ash, garlic, or salt. There is not much information in terms of the manananggal's origins, but there is evidence that the manananggal had mostly evolved into the creature it is known today fairly recently, during the late 16th century, during the Spanish colonization of the Philippines. In Father Juan de Plasentia's classification of witches is the name Matatanggal, which is a witch creature known to separate its head from its body and wander around. There are similar creatures around the Southeast Asian region, such as the Penanggal in Malaysia and the Krisue in Thailand. But why does the manananggal separate its body from the torso instead of the neck? One theory is that pre-colonial Filipino women had much more freedom in their communities. The separation from the torso was a way to lessen the lure of women who went against the Spanish missionaries' Christian ideals. The wings of the devil were added to fit the Christian ideal of evil. Thus is the history of one of the most terrifying, vampire-like monsters of the Philippines.
I don't I don't believe in such things. I mean, I do believe that these things are like some panakot, or like just to frighten other people to not violate the rules or go out in the dark always, or go out in the dark alone. It's like that. It's not actually a real thing. It's just actually to scare you out.
Now that I'm a little bit older and I'm in a different part of the world, I don't believe them anymore. Growing up, I hear stories here and there. I can't really say I believe them, but I felt like, okay, I'll just be safe and not, make them mad. So I'll do what the little things they say, like say excuse me and things like that. Growing up, I thought I wouldn't lose anything by doing those harmless things.
Probably, not all. Like, I would say that I do believe in ghosts because I did experience seeing two, but the others, to cease to believe. The others, I do not have experience, and it's kind of hard to believe in tikbalas and kapas and manananggas. You don't see them, you don't experience it firsthand. But ghosts, yeah, probably I do.
It's culture too. Like when you are in a place where a lot of people believe in it, then you would kind of feel like, okay, maybe it's true because of the number of people who believe in it. And I want to say, because I come from the province, so it's like there are a lot of rural areas, where modern living hasn't really grown that much yet. So I think it's more common actually in the province.
I think it's because of tradition, or like, well, here in the Philippines, there's lack of knowledge or lack of education, that they always believe in such things that are always passed down from generations to generations. And actually, most of the people now, most of the people now don't believe in these things, but they, for the respect of like their ancestors, like that. Their ancestors always say to believe or something, those kind of things.
The Philippines is full of unique stories and cultural traditions that still persist to this day. While the true belief in these supernatural creatures are waning, there is no denying the significant influence these stories still have. At the same time, modernization has influenced modern Filipino society and beliefs towards progress and a better Philippines.
I think nowadays the Philippines are going towards more westernization. Um, there's a lot of modern things going on in the Philippines. They're getting more modern technology, a lot of more modern influences. So I think it's growing less and less in popularity or in belief over there. Even in the provinces, I think the provinces is already also getting more modern. They have internet, they have more access to Western media and stuff.
In the changing belief, I would say, says a lot about the status of the people, of the Filipino people. Like I said, since for me, those who still believe in supernatural beings would would have lack of exposure now we can see that more and more people don't believe in those supernatural things anymore because they are more educated, more exposed to technology, to modernization. But those who still believe would probably not just because they lack exposure, but they hold on to the tradition. You know, Filipinos value their tradition so much that it's really sometimes it's pulling us backwards to progression. If you get what I mean. You get what I mean.
Yes, well.
Yeah. We really value tradition, culture, and not just Filipinos. Like you said, the Europeans, they believe in brownies. It says a lot about the old people. They these supernaturals were invented because were believed to have existed, to have an explanation for what's happening to their situation, to their surroundings, to their environment, like the mythology. So we're not alone in the belief in supernatural. It just depends on probably the surroundings, on how our ancestors explained whatever is happening to their surroundings, to their how our ancestors passed on their beliefs to their successors.